Hi everybody, this is Albert Preciado. Welcome to Storycraft Unfiltered, where storytelling meets in-depth journalism. Each episode dives into captivating narratives and original content, blending compelling storytelling, unbiased, well-researched information. Join us as we explore real stories from diverse perspectives, shedding light on untold, challenging the status quo. If you're passionate about engaging tales and authentic journalism, you're at the right spot. Today we're going to delve into our favorite subject, film. I've got with me two special guests. I've got Jorge Luis Gamboa, who is a tech director. Is that correct? Tech director for Guadalupe Cultural Arts Theater?
Cultural Arts Center.
Cultural Arts Center. And then we have Sarah Preciado, who is an avid film watcher. She actually watches more films than I do, if you can believe that. Jorge, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I've been in production of all kinds for the last 20 years, over 20 years, and in every part of the spectrum, from sound to lights to videos to content creation to direction to technical direction, and I've run the gamut, freelance and professional.
Okay, great deal. So, the reason why I'm bringing you onto this podcast is because I hear you've actually been part of the Cine Festival that we do in San Antonio, Texas, almost annually, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was this last one was the 42nd Cine Festival. It is the longest running Latino film festival in the country. I've been involved for the last 3 years or so, and I'm the technical director for that. Which means I get to watch a lot of films.
Yeah, great. A lot of cultural filmmakers that we do get, Hispanic culture filmmakers. Yes. Fantastic. And Sarah, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me what kind of movies you like to watch. What's your niche? What do you like to do?
So I like any kind of movies, anything from musicals, romance, comedy. But right now, just because of the fall season, I'm kind of into the horror movies.
Horror movies. Any particular horror movies you like that you want to watch here pretty soon?
Yes, my guilty pleasure would be Trick or Treat.
Ooh, Trick or Treat. Anthologies. My favorite. I love anthologies because you get all sorts of stories. Good stuff. Okay, guys. Well, we're going to use this time to talk about film. Okay, guys. So during our podcast, what we'd like to do is get a roundabout conversation going that's not as biased. You know, we get fed quite a bit of interpretations from others. So I want to get a different point of view from that. So to do that, I want to go over through controversies, right? See if we can talk about some controversies. Let's talk about some impacts, something that you don't necessarily hear about very often, and in everyday conversation. And then let's do some let's prophesize, if you will, right? Let's go ahead and see what's going to happen. What based off of what we know, what do we think is going to happen? So first topic we're going to talk about is the art versus artist. Can we separate the two? So we've been hearing a lot in the media today, not necessarily film, but I guess you can call it film. Whenever we have Harry Potter series, right? We definitely have Daniel Radcliffe and, Emma Watson, all of them and whatnot. I guess I should mention Rupert Grint because of the fact that he's never mentioned. So I'm just, Rupert Grint, if you're listening, I mentioned you. But J.K. Rowling recently came out speaking against the LGBTQ community, and there was an uproar, right? So getting mixed messages from all sorts of people regarding this. She wrote some of the literary, now we can consider literary classic of Harry Potter, right? 7 books, and built an entire universe. So with that in mind, and that with the actual producers that we have, such as Harvey Weinstein, and that's pretty much not the basis, but definitely led to the Me Too movement, right? I believe it was Alyssa Milano who mentioned the Harvey Weinstein scandals. If not her, then I apologize. I'll definitely check that out. But and then of course we have Woody Allen with the sexual harassment allegations against him, and Kevin Spacey. So all of these people are artists. They do things. They create film. They create art, right? They're artists of their own. I mean, aside from Harvey Weinstein, he is a producer, but because of him, we have these really iconic films. So with that being said, with that as a platform, how do you approach the work of filmmakers or actors who have been involved in controversies? Can we or should we separate the art from the artist? And I'm going to go with Sarah first on this one. What are your thoughts?
I think we can. I think we can separate the art from the artist because their art is not always a portrayal of their beliefs. Sometimes it's different. And I guess you can't degrade the art based on the actions of the artist.
That's a very good point. Yeah, because definitely, the creation has a life of its own. I mean, would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you, Jorge? How do you approach the work of filmmakers or actors who have been involved in controversies?
I think it has a lot to do with what you do with it, because you can. I agree with Sarah. They are two separate things: the art itself and then the artist. And if you feel called to then take action, or inaction, like not watching the films, or even never going back, selling things, protesting, whatever you want, that's all comes after the action, which isn't necessarily the film itself. Your action to not watch the film, or your inaction, or your choice to not watch the film, that's what you can do in response to the people themselves. But that isn't necessarily the art itself or the work
Mm-hmm.
itself. So that's where I see a lot of people boycotting, a lot of people kind of, taking action, which is totally the legitimate course of action, but that's still not the art itself. And so for those that have memories of it beforehand, like how can you retroactively do something about it, right?
Right. Definitely so. And it's funny because when you speak about boycotting, right, and people who don't watch these, who does that really hurt? Does it really hurt the actor? Does it really hurt them? No, it hurts the Writers Guild, the production union and whatnot. They're the ones who are banking off of you going in and watching this film. So it's really kind of hard. How do you go? I mean, how do you make yourself known? How do you make it known that you don't condone these actors and what they're not necessarily the actors, but the behaviors of these actors and what they've done? It's a sticky situation. So next question is, do you think an artist's personal behavior or beliefs can overshadow their creations in any way? I mean, how has this played out with, figures like J.K. Rowling and Woody Allen and Harvey Weinstein? Choose one, or if you have one, definitely let us know. But, I mean, do you think, the behavior itself is just kind of being brought up way more than the actual art?
I think, it both have impact on people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're two different things, it's often the stories themselves are content and the film is content. So I think if someone doesn't know that actor, like Harvey Weinstein, for instance, a lot of people didn't know who he was, even though we might remember the logo, remember seeing his name on there, but not actually realizing who it is. So that can easily, if you know the story more than you know the films, then him as a person can overshadow his work.
Right.
While you might not know the person at all, but love the art, and that might overshadow whatever you know, because it's also how much you know at any given point.
Right.
Because we didn't know anything about these things as we were watching the films.
Mm-hmm.
They were still happening.
Right.
And now after the fact, we're finding out about it more, so it might take up more mental space just now that the situation has come to light.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, what do you think, Sarah? Would you agree? Like, I mean, their actions, should they overshadow their creations, or?
I think it's getting better as more companies and more people they're finding out about more people doing things and more allegations, that it's not overshadowing the art as much as it was before, and it's more the person, and the companies are showing how they're dealing with it by instead taking that person out of the show, or saying they can no longer work for us, instead of taking emphasis away from the art that had already been produced in the past. Right,
and it's a good point, because we got a recent premiere happen, which is Beetlejuice, right? Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, and we noticed that the person who plays the dad in Beetlejuice did not show up in the film at all, and you tend to wonder, is it because he had the sexual allegations against him that they're just like, ooh, now the film industry's like, ooh, we can't do that, bad publicity, no way, right? But it did not overshadow the creation. They still created a relatively decent film, Beetlejuice sequel. So it does have repercussions, and maybe that's where we see the repercussions. Not in boycotting the film, but sorry, you don't get the job. You know, Kevin Spacey lost House of Cards in the middle of like, you know, the seasons, right? So like they just killed him off, you know. And so yeah, it definitely doesn't overshadow the creations, because the show will go on, right? The show will go on. People still need to watch their shows. We're just going to see different people on the shows, is what I'm thinking. So in the context of Cine Festival, Jorge, do you encounter like similar controversies, or is it like a separation of art, and the art is perceived differently, and is it perceived differently in this culture?
I mean, given that it's such a short turnaround from submission to screening, and that we often don't know too much about the personal lives, or there isn't enough notoriety of the directors, the filmmakers, or there's small parts that we've yet to encounter that kind of situation. But I imagine we play it by ear, and we get to kind of choose the films that we do. So
Right.
I think we have film festivals have a good amount of say of what gets out there.
Right.
Because it's not audience demand, it's
Right.
what the curation is.
Right, and it's a festival, so that does make sense. Okay, good deal. Well, thank you very much for sharing that, guys. It's definitely a great topic to talk about, right? Let's move on to the next topic, which is going to be, if you're ready for this, film critique versus film impact, right? Are they the same, right? The way somebody critiques a video, is that necessarily equal the impact that we're going to be seeing from the film, you know? I guess where I want to go with this is the fact that I enjoy having conversations about film, and I can have it with almost anybody, right? And at any level, you know, down to, you know, the grandmother in HEB is talking about, you know, oh, I remember this film, and it was really good. He was a really great leading actor. Oh, that Tom Hanks, he's so funny, ha 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 ha, and talk about that. Like, oh, I remember seeing him in Forrest Gump, you know, to that level, all the way down to, hey, we've got another, well, like, because you were saying, like, Harvey Weinstein, right? Like, we didn't really know who he was, but we do know that logo, right? It's like, oh, it's another Weinstein movie, so we're going to see this great, you know, another Tarantino movie, and break that down and talk about, you know, what was his creative process, and you know Kevin Smith, and how did he strayed away from fart jokes and started actually doing like horror, like a suspenseful movie, like, to that level, right? And everybody was a critic in that sense, right? So everybody had their own perceptions of film, and when it comes out, it's always like, oh, this is what I think, and this is my personal experience, of course, right? This is what I think about it. You know, they feel like they have to put out their, you know. Whenever somebody sees a movie for the first time, almost directly the question they're going to get asked is, so what did you think? What did you think about that film? And at that point, put on that film critique hat and start saying these things, right? But is that really equal to what the actual film does and the impact it has on, you know, its audience, on society, on the world itself, you know, decades later? A good example would be I think I mentioned Boondock Saints. Boondock Saints never made it to theaters, but it became a cult classic fairly quickly. Like, people just started like, oh wow, that's a great movie. Another good one's Equilibrium with Christian Bale, and some people would say that that's what got him the role as Bruce Wayne in the Batman series, because of the fact that he was so serious and so able to, you know, he basically was Batman in Equilibrium. It was great, good stuff. What are your thoughts on that? Just a general overall thought. You know, it's an interesting topic for you guys. Have you guys noticed that before? People putting on the different hats, film critique. Do you guys ever come across that?
I think one of the most infamous for me was Roger Ebert and Siskel giving a thumbs down to Ace Ventura and calling it like, it's never going to fly, nobody's going to like it, it's too vulgar, it's too whatever. Yeah. And, you know, they were the gold standard of critiques.
They were.
They knew everything about the movie. They could say about what they didn't like about it, whatnot, but there's no way they could have predicted how much of an impact that character had in the world, and how many people still repeat those lines and stuff. So it always, I do believe there's value to critiques, because even in my experience with the film festival, it's like sometimes that's what you need as a filmmaker, is critiques. and they can be a good predictor of impact. But it's really tough to really know what's going to be impactful just by watching it, because that's what cult classics are.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Sarah, what do you think? Do you think film criticism is as important today as it once was? How do film critique differ from the actual impact?
I don't think it's as important as it was. Like before, movies would come out and you would look for like the tomatoes, the stars, whatever it was going to be, to see what the critics were saying about the movie. What was going to be one of those that you wanted to go see the first night or ahead of time or not. And now it's more, I guess I'm not crazy about the word, but like an influencer. You want somebody that actually enjoys to go to the films, and they're because they're going to give you their view of it. Like,
Right.
And they're looking at all the different scenarios, like the content, the plot, the characters. They're looking at the whole thing, and then they'll let you know how it was based
Right.
on that.
No, I agree. Yeah, definitely what you feel. For me, it's if I can watch the film again and get the same feeling, like 5 years from now, like, man, I want to watch The Fifth Element again because I remember how I felt when I watched it, and it still makes me laugh, and it's still like I still get excited, and that for me is like that's a standard for me to like, oh wow, yeah, it made an impact. So
I guess I would say then, it seems like film critiques are more for the filmmakers themselves, because I like there's value to the filmmaker, but maybe not as much as an audience.
right, that would make sense. That does make sense. Well, thanks guys. I definitely appreciate that topic, and I'm gonna move over to topic 3 now. So this one, it's a good segue, I think, because we're talking about how film critiques have changed. So we're living in the world of TikTok, of Instagram, of all these short contents, right? And at the same time, we're also living in a world of streaming services. Netflix is a freaking giant. It's a giant in their filmmaking, and so is Hulu, and so is we got Hulu originals, we got Amazon originals, we got all these originals from these streaming services, and they've got the bank to bankroll these films, right? And then we also have Marvel. Marvel's coming in, and they're just not stopping. I mean, we can ask them to stop; they're just not going to stop. It's not going to happen. They're just going to continue to make them. So in the world of TikTok and streaming services and Marvel, right? The Marvels. What does it look like for film now, right? Like what does that mean now for film? Are we seeing less original content? What kind of original content are we seeing now? Because I do think we still see some original content. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Well, as someone that just likes to watch movies in general, I know that the things that come out in theaters, I'm not as excited as I was before. It really has to catch my attention in the trailer. That's really going to make it or break it now. And if it doesn't, then it's going to be something that I'm going to wait till it comes out where I can watch it at home. But when you have these streaming services showing me the trailer, like those, I will make it a point, like, okay, this is going to come out. We're going to make it a date night or a family night, and I'm going to sit down and watch that like with the whole cinematic, like I'm going to make sure I have my popcorn and everything,
Right.
like if I was in the theater. So I definitely think the streaming services up to their game, and Marvel and the other things coming out of the theater are just not what they were.
Yeah, agreed. Well, what are your thoughts, Jorge?
It feels like the whole landscape's changed, and I think it comes from like the technological ability for more people to be able to make their own films, and that's really who's providing Hulu and Netflix and everyone with their content. Is like people who have their own equipment and stuff like that. Sure, you have originals, Netflix or Hulu originals and things like that, but then you just have the movies that are just bought up by them because it's some independent film or some company or some group that is cranking out films and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot more opportunity for it, and you're seeing it from TikTok as well. Like people are moving back and forth or using TikTok as a way to promote things.
Right.
So it just kind of really changed the landscape.
Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So so how do you see Hispanic cinema, specifically Hispanic cinema, evolving in the future with the rise of global streaming platforms?
It's definitely a voice that's not heard as often, and one of the things that I see and hear being in the film festival is and getting some insider insight, is that those stories want to be told and those stories want to be heard, and there's an audience for it. Though crafting an authentic story that's watchable, crafting an authentic film or content that's actually gonna have the impact as a larger film, we're just not seeing as many voices.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And they are out there, and certain things are getting picked up, and sometimes it's almost inevitable that you see like a Latino version, or you see some kind of like Latino take on things, but it's slow coming.
Right, and I do agree with that. There's a lot of stories out there that can be told, right? And I agree. I think we're going through different cultures, and I think it's a product of the '90s of being all inclusive. We're starting to see more of that, but it's more like the Hispanic side is slowly building and building and building. I can definitely see that we have a presence, and by we, because I am Hispanic. We have a presence in film, and we have a presence in this world. We have a presence in the United States, so we definitely have the audience for that. So I do agree. Let's see here. What, Sarah? Do you believe that streaming platforms have made it harder for smaller films to get recognized?
I don't think it's made it harder. I just don't think we see a lot of cultural films yet. I'd like to see more. Like, I know one of my favorites would be A Real Woman Have Curves.
Yeah.
And it didn't get enough popularity, and I would like to see more movies like that from streaming services, just showing like the culture.
Yeah.
More
Definitely.
relatable.
Yep, America's first big film. Yeah, now she does Barbie. She's come a long way. She's come a long way.
I'll also add is that a lot of the ones that we do see come to film festivals might not always have lines of distribution. So it's like we see 100 to 200 films every year, and some are up to par, but then maybe not as polished. And then even the ones that are really great, they might have like a release, but a release on YouTube or a release on Hulu or Netflix doesn't mean that that's top 10 on your feed when you turn on Netflix.
Right.
So sometimes they're just coming in varied in.
Right.
And if it's not in the front page, and you don't know what to look for by title, there's no way you would know.
True. Yeah. There's those algorithms. There's those bubbles that are created, right?
Yeah.
That they want to push those top-rated movies. Top-rated in your area. It's very, very, very true. Well, guys, I want to thank y'all so much for your insights and everything that we've discussed today. And definitely with the controversy between the artist and the art itself, I think we've got a pretty good idea as to the art. It still needs to thrive. It still needs to go on, and we're seeing the industry kind of do its best to make sure that we get away from the bad behaviors and whatnot. So I do appreciate that, and as far as film itself, critiquing it in the impact, definitely two different things, right?
And we're seeing accountability more and more.
Absolutely, I've seen more and more accountability, and as far as the impact that film does, it's that's why the show goes on. That's why we still have these things, because the impact of film that we have in society has always been there. It's always impactful. So you can criticize it, and it's a good point. Yeah, it's probably for the filmmakers more than anybody else on how you critique it. But the impact is going to be seen later. You see it through the years, right? That's why Godfather is still Godfather, right? And then of course the last one, we're seeing a change in the industry with streaming services and TikTok and with the new artists that are coming out. It used to be like, I want to be signed by Fox. Now it's like, dude, I got Netflix. That's their big break, to get signed by Netflix or by Amazon Prime. So thank you guys so much for your insights. Jorge, Sarah, thank you so much, and thank you for everybody who's listening to Storycraft Unfiltered. Tune again next week when we go ahead and discover new perceptions on another breaking the status quo on some sort of other topic. To be continued. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.